BBC Radio Manchester.
It's not fair to grumble, is it? 12 Celsius. We can live with that, well, I could. Not all year. Manage it for most of the winter, if I had to, but, yeah. But for all year, it'd be a bit iffy. Although it was quite nice. Quite nice yesterday. What was I doing? Can't remember. I had to do something yesterday afternoon. Oh, I had to go and buy some pipes. Yeah. St. Patrick's Day. Grand. Why do all Britons seem to wish to have a chunk of the Irish in them? I could have phrased that better, I know now. But why do they? I don't understand. I mean, I hesitate to say this, given the foregoing, but I've got a bit of Irish in me. I'm not sure how big a proportion it is, but it's there. There's a bit of it. Yeah. So why do we? What is it about the Irish? Or is it just we know a good party when we see one? And I know it's racist to say it, but the Irish do know how to party, as I say. I mean, there is nothing more entertaining than an Irish funeral. The wake, as it's called. Did you ever hear the song, The Finian's Wake? There's a great line in it that goes, "Thunder and lightning, I think he's dead." I don't know why they do it with a Chinese accent, but there you are. Right, should we get on? Smart. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk, and the text number, in the time-honoured way, if time honours anything, it certainly don't me no favours, in the time-honoured way, stop it, is 07786 206 951. That's it. And early doors yesterday, we were posed the question, where does the term kangaroo court come from? Well, we know what a kangaroo court is, sham legal proceedings, like a BBC inquiry or something, yeah. So, that's a kangaroo court. The origin, Gary sent me this in Failsworth. Well, he sent it from Failsworth, but he was in Failsworth at the time. Otherwise, it would have been from somewhere else. I don't know. Gary sent me this. The origin of kangaroo court is unknown. Now, I can't see why we can't put a full stop there. But no, we have to faff about, don't we? The origin of kangaroo court is unknown, although, given that kangaroos are native nowhere else, we might expect the term to have originated in Australia. As always, a lack of a definite origin encourages speculative claims, which may be an appropriate word in this context, as one frequently repeated supposed derivation relates to claim jumping in California gold rush, hence the allusion to kangaroos. It's beginning to sound on the edge of interesting. That, says whoever wrote this, is quite a plausible notion. Kangaroos and their claim to fame, so to speak, i.e. jumping, were known in the USA by the early 1800s, so there's no reason to limit the derivation to Australia. Also, the earliest known citation of the term is American and appears in a collection of magazine articles by Philip Paxton, who wrote under the name of Samuel Adams Hammett, which were published in 1853 under the title of A Stray Yankee in Texas. Quote, this is from the book, I will end there. Quote, by a unanimous vote, Judge G was elected to the bench and the Mustang, or kangaroo court, regularly organised. Does that help from the inquiry yesterday, or have I been flogging a dead horse, or even, if I may say, a dead kangaroo? Well, it could be either, or indeed both. Oh, somebody's asked for an autograph to raffle off. I'm not sure that anyone gives a damn about my autograph, to be honest, but never mind. If they want it, I'll send it. What about... Oh, can I just say, for reasons that are nothing to do with me, the do at Withington Girls High School on Thursday has been called off. I've no idea why it's been called off, which is a bit of a beggar, isn't it? But it has. It's been called off. So there won't be an audience with Allan Beswick on Thursday
Caffeinated Conversation with Heather Stott and Friends.
Karting, you can actually go on to get into motorsports from that, can't you?
Great things. I'm currently doing my absolute best to give them the opportunity to be the next Lewis Hamilton.
Right. Paid off well for him,
But I've got to
hasn't it?
say, we've got some equally talented students.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Do you think could be as good?
Better.
Have you been watching Heston doing his medieval feast?
I have
What's
indeed.
he on?
In any given art or creative field, you need people who are pushing the envelope. If you go and look at haute couture on the catwalks,
Yeah.
would you want to wear it every day? No. Does it filter down to the high street and become accessible? Yes.
The Coffee Club with Heather Stott and Friends.
Sign me up.
Tomorrow morning from 9 on BBC Radio Manchester.
You wouldn't eat snail porridge, would you? I wouldn't. That's what he's famous for. He does more than that, as you've seen on the telly, but snail porridge? No, thank you. I don't want it. I don't like snails at the best of time, and porridge is not that clever. You're not going to combine the two and think, oh, together, they're better. It's not going to happen. Crazy. We're still getting loads of stuff about cheap booze. Not adverts, unfortunately, you might say. We're still getting loads of stuff about cheap booze, and indeed about why we should have cheap booze and why we shouldn't. But listen to this, because this is in the Manchester Evening News this morning, and I've not heard anybody else comment on it. And frankly, I think it's a major step if it happens. Yeah, and I kind of like it, but you can see the position. What's changed, I suppose, is the question. But a ban on drinking from glasses outside city centre bars and restaurants is to be lifted to give Manchester a more cosmopolitan feel. Wine glasses, pint pots and bottles were banned from Manchester's streets and replaced with plastic cups under a bylaw brought on 8 years ago following an MEN campaign to halt glass attacks. Licensing bosses and police will meet later this week to draw up guidelines to reverse the ban. So those people who like to sit outside, which you've not had much of in the last few months, but I suspect we'll have some of in the coming months, those who like to sit outside or stand outside or what have you, having a glass of alcohol, particularly if it's with a meal and you sit there and you've got a knife, a real fork, a plate that you could cut somebody's head off with, but you sat there drinking out of a plastic glass. Exactly. You could fork somebody to death, couldn't you? And that's not as much fun as it might sound if you were drunk. But you could fork somebody to death just as easily as stab them. So it does seem a strange rule. And I remember thinking it was a limitation of our freedoms when it came in. But what do you think? Should we now allow people in the city centre, those people who choose to eat in the street? I don't mean eating a burger from a polystyrene box. I think that should be outlawed straight away. Oh, ghastly things. But that's just my view. I mean, what do you think about the idea? Should we be overturning the rule? We've had it for a while. We overturn it. Are there going to be an awful lot more glassings? I've absolutely no idea. Also in the Manchester Evening News, bottled water sales are diminishing. As people get poorer, they've realised that actually you get water out of a tap. I know! It's a fantastic... I don't know when they introduced it. It's a fantastic idea. You have this room at the back of your house. And I mean, some people have them at the front when they've got back road about houses. But generally at the back of the house. And you walk, and when you get there, there's a big sort of rectangular bucket-like thing, and it's not got an handle because you can't carry it anywhere because it's nailed to the wall. And in the bottom of this bucket-like thing, there's an 1.5-inch circle, and it's black compared to the white of the bucket-like thing. And this black thing at the bottom has a chain on it. It's quite a clever idea. And then above the thing, some people call it a sink. Above the white bucket, the big white bucket, there are these two shiny things with a cross on the top. And if you get hold of the cross on the top and you twist it slightly, what happens is water falls out the front of it. It's brilliant. Oh, it's fantastic. Water falls out the front of it, and you can get a cup and put it under, and the water gathers in the cup. It's brilliant. And then you can put the cup to your lips, and when you tip it like that, water falls in your mouth. It's brilliant. I don't know who invented it, but apparently it's catching on now because people are poor. Because up until recently, the only way to get water was, of course, from a bottle from the corner shop. Yeah. Now, either got it in them bottles, I'm not sure, but I think they've got a big sink, and one of them big tappy things, with the cross on, and they fill them up, and then you go and pay them money. Oh, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant idea. So people are actually going to, no, they are. People are actually going to drink water from these devices in their own home. I know. It stunned me when I found out. It must be true. It's in the evening news. It says it in the evening news. It says, bottled water sales. I'll read it to you. It's the only way. Sales of bottled water going down the drain. A little bit of humour there, just to help you. Sales of bottled water have plunged. It's good, isn't it? Have plunged due to poor weather, the recession, poor people, and the increasing environmental awareness. Last year, Britain spent, listen to this, last year Britain spent £262 million on 409 million litres of bottled water. That's a reduction of 9% in speeding, as a combination of factors began to bite, or even suck, the once fashionable industry. It happened in the 70s. A French firm called Perrier. Yeah, but they sold water. You see, we haven't got a tap. In our house, we haven't anyway. You have a tap for cold, and you have another one for the hot. But if you had a tap for water with a trump in it, then we could do away with even the fizzy water in the shops, because we'd be able to just have it on draft like they do in the pubs, and you could get water. Yeah. No, yeah, it would work. I think United Utilities should start doing a fizzy water. I mean, a bit of a beggar if you press the wrong one when you're having a bath and you get in and it's all going round your stuff like that, going blah, 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 blah. You don't want that. But, well, I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you do. It's very good for batter. No, not that. No, fizzy water, it's good for batter. It makes it lighter. That Aston Blumenthal said. And he knows everything about batter. Oh, yes, he does. Well, everything probably narrows it. But, as I say, there it is. For over 100 years, said Ted in Moston, the Irish were British. He knows how to start a row. For over 100 years, said Ted in Moston, the Irish were British. The reason everyone in Britain, and Lancashire in particular, liked being Irish was because Ireland was still a very rural part of the United Kingdom. So they all came here to get jobs. Just about everyone in Lancashire is either Irish, Scottish, and sometimes even both, says Ted in Moston. I don't know what he's suggesting there as about possibly both. It's a little bit worrying. Anyway, what's on your mind today? What do you want to get off your chest? Have you ever been searched at the cinema like Sue in Stockport, who had her pears dropped? It can't be good. Yeah, well, actually, it was Revels, wasn't it? Yeah. Revel. Never mind. 0161 228 2255. Or 07786 206 951. Or Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. Have you ever had trouble getting your own candy floss? It's hard to smuggle. Have you ever tried to get your own candy floss into the local flea pit? Neither have I. I don't see the point, really. Maybe you save a bob or two, I suppose. 12 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines, Michelle Adamson.
A teenager has pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of a mother of 3 from Haywood. 27-year-old Emma O'Kane was hit in the neck by glass from a broken bottle on a night out last December. The bomb disposal team is on its way to a house in Hale after an unexploded mortar was found inside. Rivington Road's now been sealed off. Gordon Brown says that Iran should be encouraged to develop nuclear power as long as it agrees to stringent controls to ensure that it doesn't develop weapons. And Manchester's weather, a bright day, staying dry with highs of 12 Celsius.
Have you been evacuated in Hale because of the unexploded device? How scary is that?
BBC Radio Manchester. 2020 traffic.
If you're travelling through Warrington, Frog Hall Lane, the A57 between the Pink Eye roundabout and Crossfield Street, still restricted where the bridge is. Whilst bridge maintenance work continues, that's near Bent Park. Watch out for slow-moving traffic on the diversions. Elsewhere, if you're travelling on the motorways at the moment, you should have a nice clear run. If you're heading into Manchester from the Liverpool area, not doing too badly on the 62 from Rishworth Moor, Junction 22, on towards the M60 at Junction 18 at the Simister Island roundabout. And no reported problems on public transport, but don't forget, of course, if you can update me, it's 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
You're never more than 20 minutes away from the latest traffic through the day.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Good day to you. Raymond in Bellevue, how are you doing, mate?
Oh, I'm fine, Alan.
Good.
Nice to speak to you.
And you, sir?
Well, you know, I've been watching on the BBC News channel this survey that the BBC's done with universities and the government. Well, they're talking about they want to increase tuition fees.
Yeah, the vice-chancellors, they're the people who are the sort of the heads of universities. The vice-chancellors in a survey by the BBC say that the university fees should be increased by a substantial amount.
Yes, well, it says the chancellors think they should get the students should pay £7,000 per annum.
Yeah.
And well, you know, I have seen a leaflet, but of somebody, but I try not to make too much propaganda. But I think that I do honestly believe that education should be free throughout life. I myself have studied last year at Learn Direct, the computer, and I've learned how to turn the computer on, operate it, turn it off and go home. And it's marvellous. But no, more about the tuition fees, Alan. I think if they're free, which I propose, I think they could be met by taxation on the richest people.
Yeah, the difficulty with that is that the richest people get quite upset about taxation, as indeed do the poor people who aspire to be rich, don't they? I mean, we know...
Yes.
We know that any government that goes to... In fact, the Liberal Democrats... Now, they weren't actually talking about further and higher education, but the Liberal Democrats, about 3 elections ago, when they still had Paddy Ashdown, they included in their manifesto for the general election the promise that they would increase income tax by 1 penny in the pound.
Yes.
And every red cent of that increase would go to education.
Yes.
And they got nowhere. They got absolutely nowhere.
No,
People said...
I do remember that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm a Labour voter myself, but, you know, I think, I think they're pandering to the wealthy, internationally and nationally. And I think they're worried about what Rupert Murdoch will write in The Sun.
Well, they do worry about what Rupert Murdoch writes in The Sun, assuming Rupert Murdoch does write in The Sun just because he owns it. But yes, they do worry about that, because The Sun is a very good bellwether, if you like, of public opinion.
Yes, and you know something. I've read The Sun myself, and I think it can shape people's opinion myself.
Well, yes, it can. So when we come to that, what do you think the prospects are of your idea being readopted by the Labour Party, the current government? Free education free for all.
Well, perhaps I need to discuss it a bit more. I'm talking
All right.
to you now, and you know a lot.
I wish I did, but good on you, Raymond.
Okay,
Cheers,
Alan,
mate.
bye-bye.
Raymond says education from what you might call cradle to the grave, education should be free. The government has clearly believes that we should be a better educated society. Tony Blair, when in office, and Gordon Brown has said nothing to detract from this, said that they would like 50% of school leavers to go to university. Well, OK, 50% of school leavers go to university. That would be very, very expensive indeed. But that's OK now because, of course, it's considerably less expensive because the students have to make a very substantial contribution, a number of £1,000s per year, to it. A survey by BBC News that Raymond was commenting on suggests that most universities in England and Wales want a sharp increase in the tuition fees paid by undergraduates. The research was carried out as the government prepares to review the current cap on fees. It coincides with research by the universities themselves, which suggests that raising top-up fees to £5,000 would not put people off going to university. Well, Baroness Warwick, who's the chief executive of Universities UK, they're the sort of body, says, if we're going to maintain our world-class reputation for higher education, students increasingly demand better teachers, better facilities, better laboratories, better libraries. All of these cost money, and we have to find that money if we're going to retain our reputation. Well, life at university. We have, in Greater Manchester, the largest student population in Europe. This is because we've got a shed load of universities, as you well know. And you've only got to traipse up and down, as we have to, working at the end of it. You've only got to traipse up and down Oxford Road to see just how many people there are at university. And then you get out to Regent Road and there's another shed load of them. And then, of course, you go to Bolton. They've got their own universities. There's an awful lot of them there as well. So there's a massive collection of campuses, if you will. So that also means we've got more professors than anywhere else in Europe. We have a lot more professors residing and working within the confines of Greater Manchester than they have in, I don't know, anywhere else in Europe. France? No. Knock them into a cocked hat. All those places, all the cities of Germany. Manchester is top of that. By Manchester, I mean Manchester and the city of Salford and the towns and all the rest of it. So, what's it like? Are you a lecturer at university? If so, what's it like? The university vice-chancellors, your bosses, are talking about getting more money off the students. But actually, they're talking about getting more money. They know the government aren't going to cough, so they're talking about getting it off the students. More money paid by the students for their further and higher education. Well, in case of universities, it's higher education. But are you a university lecturer? What's it like for you on a day-to-day basis? Is it as it was a decade ago? 20 years ago, what is it like for you? And on the other side of the coin, are you a student? There's enough of them beggars around. Are you a student? What's life like at university? What's it like to come out of university owing tens of thousands of pounds? Well, OK, we know that's the option. You come out of university owing tens of thousands of pounds. But how was it when you were there? Did you get the education you thought you were going to get? Did you get help with things? Were the facilities right? Were the lecture theatres right? These things are as important as any others. Did you have proper access to the library? Was the library adequate? Did they have enough books and all of that? So what was it like for you? And also, have you got a child at university? What's it costing you? Because we hear about the debts that the kids have, or the youngsters have, when they leave university, but you're left with this thought, isn't it, aren't you, with, well, OK, yes, that's what they owe, but that takes no cognizance at all, recognises in no way the amount of the money that the parents are spending. If you've got a kid at university, it's going to cost you. Obviously, if you haven't got any money, then it's not going to cost you any money. But if you have, most people that have got a few bob, most people who can afford it, supplement their children at university. If they can, I know not everybody can. Some people it doesn't matter. Rich people, it doesn't affect their lives at all. But you're still left with the situation of many, many people who, well, frankly, spend thousands on their youngsters. What did it cost you putting your youngster through university? And do we need all those damn students? It's a fair question, even though they're paying £3,000 and £4,000 a year, sometimes £5,000, to go to university, which they have to borrow usually, even though that's going on, even though the parents are subsidising their way of life in order to allow them to continue at university. We're still picking up the bill. We, the taxpayer, are still picking up the bill. We have to... You go onto any of the campuses right now in Manchester. They're building as if there is no tomorrow. They are building with alacrity. Millions upon millions of pounds being spent on new build. Manchester University have just spent a couple of £1 million building a car park, for crying out loud. Well, you need one. I mean, we're not knocking them. That's what they cost. But millions of pounds are being spent. Whose money is that? Answer? Mine. Yours. All of our money. Do we need it? Do we really need that much money? 0161 228 2255. Wendy. Interesting. Wendy says, I've not been evacuated from Hale because of bombs. You know, there's a bomb scare in Hale. Not that sort, but an unexploded device. Not a terrorism incident or anything of that ilk. But there's an exploded device and the cops are rushing there and all the rest of it. But she says, I've not been evacuated from Hale because of bombs, but years ago I was evacuated to Hale to avoid bombs. I suspect you're referring to the outbreak of war, Wendy. Never mind, you can't help your age. Well, you can't. My school, Gorse Hill Primary, Stretford, found itself sent to Hale at the outbreak of war. Oh, fantastic. You didn't go far, did you? I suppose Hale in those days was a rural community, just a few farms and chip shops. I've no idea. What was it like? What was Hale like? I'm intrigued. Not much more than that now. What was Hale like back in 1940? I wasn't born, can't say. But the town has changed, hasn't it? It's all changed. All those small towns, no respect meant to Hale, but all those small towns used to be different places. And now it's just like one, isn't it? It's just one. You head out of Manchester and you don't really get out of the conurbation until if you're going east, then you don't get out the conurbation until you get to, well, frankly, the far side of Oldham. Rochdale, the far side of that, before you really get out of Manchester, the lump. The same going south. You're well south. You're well into Cheshire, way beyond Stockport before you get out of the area. And the same going my way, west. You know, the M6 is about the end of it, isn't it? So it hasn't always been like that. Even I remember when we had things like grass and some little gadget, quite an interesting gadget, really. It sort of stands upright and has many arms sticking out. I think they call them trees. Yes, quite. So it has changed, or maybe Hale's changed, and not necessarily for the better, you would say. So what was it like years ago? We all think back, don't we, the halcyon days of yesteryear, thinking it was absolutely fine. 0161 228 2255. If you want to join us, feel free. There's a cracking and in many ways pointless story in the Daily Mail. And I saw this yesterday on our wires service and was going to comment on it, and I couldn't bring myself to, but I will. The body of a 14th, that 1300 and odd, the body of a 14th century teenager thought to have been beheaded as a witch and buried on unconsecrated ground has been exhumed and given a proper burial. The girl, named Holly by archaeologists because her remains were found beneath a holly bush, had had her head laid at her side, a sign that she might have been suspected of witchcraft. Holly's body was found 6 years ago in HWO in Kent during an excavation by archaeologists prior to work starting on a housing development. The body was taken away for research. The remains were dated from medieval pottery found in the same area. And now they've said that, well, Dr. Paul Wilkinson is quoted. He's a director of Kent Archaeological Field School, and he said the decapitation, which was believed would deny eternal life, meant Holly was shamed and was either a teenage witch, a criminal, or had committed suicide, not by cutting her own head off, obviously. But now her remains lie in the graveyard of the local parish church. Why? What is the point? What is the point? I know we have to show respect for the dead, but frankly, I don't think she's bothered. Now, she might have been at the time when they said, "Yo, we cast you out, you are a witch, we're going to cut your head off." She'd have been pretty peed off about that. She'd have had something to say about that, thinking this doesn't look like a good plan, and I'm not keen on it, and if I was a witch, I'd turn you all into frogs and make you hop it. But no, she probably thought this is rubbish. Then again, she might have just laughed her head off. I don't know. But, no, I know, but the truth is, she's been dead an awful long time. Yes, nigh on 700 years. Now, here's the problem. Well, for me it is. We gave her a Christian burial. First of all, she might not have been a Christian. They were a bit thin on the grounds round about then. Yeah? So she might not have been a Christian, so she might be a bit cheesed off about that. But what is the benefit of the Christian interment? What is the benefit of it? Because are you really suggesting to me that the Christian God is sitting there saying, well, look, you had your head cut off because you was a witch, so frankly, you ain't coming in here. Peter's in charge of the gate, and we don't do headless. Accidental headless, when it sort of fell off when you weren't watching proper, that we'll accept. Trauma headless, that we'll accept. But when your fellow citizens have cut your head off because you're a bit iffy, well, we're not letting you in. Yeah, and what's more, you weren't buried in consecrated ground, so frankly, there's nought down for you. You'll just stand over there with your head underneath your arms, like that other woman that used to walk the bloody tower. Yeah, right? But now, can you imagine? So now there's God having a cup of tea, and in comes the Archangel Gabriel. He says, "Hey, God." "What, Gabe?" Or Gabby, you call him. Gabby, what? Gabby, what? I ought to have a bit of echo for God, but I don't think I've got any. What's going on? Well, the humans... Oh, not them again, says God. Oh, crying out loud, they're terrible. Well, the humans, he says, they've dug that woman up. You remember her 700 years ago? You can't expect me to remember that. You're omnipotent. Oh, all right, then. 700 years ago, you know her that come up without the head, because it was next to her, and we said she can't come in because they'd cut it off. Yeah? Well, they found her, they dug her up. What were they looking for? Well, they were just looking, really. They're looking for coins. One of them had one of them detector things. Yeah. Well, they've dug her up by accident, and there she is. Head, body, head. Head, body, head. Is Tommy Cooper starting up again? Tell him to sit down. Right. So Gabriel says, so what have they done? They've now given her a Christian burial. And God says, right then. Well, about time too, I say. They've sorted it out. They let her in now. Let her in. With or without the head? Do we let the head in and not the body, or the body in without the head? I don't know. Said a bloke with wing. Well, OK then. You can just see it, can't you? I mean, what is going on? What is the point of that? How does it change anything for her? Or is it like funerals are now? Current funerals, contemporary funerals. Isn't the funeral got nothing to do with the dead and everything to do with the living? Well, maybe that's what's gone on. But it does seem, doesn't it, like a very, very strange thing to do 700 years later. Yes, by all means, bury it somewhere with integrity, but with faith? Are you appealing to God to say, God, we're just 700 years late, could you have a word? If he doesn't know, he's not much of a God. Alan, are you aware that you are no longer required by law to have your name on the electoral register? However, we are advised that it is in our interest to do so. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to vote, and it can affect things like applying for credit. If the ID card is introduced, perhaps it won't be on a compulsory basis. However, we might be enticed in such a way that it will cause difficulty in some situations for us not to have one. Well, yeah, if they introduce the identity card, there wouldn't be much point unless sometime down the road they say, and now that you've got one, now that everybody's got one, you've got to carry it. You do it in other countries. Why would we be different? I don't know. What do you say? And I didn't know. I might check. I didn't know that you weren't required any longer by law to be on the electoral register. I thought it was still compulsory. I shall check. 0161 228 2255. If you know different, of course, ring and tell. Just gone 20 to 1 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines, Mark Edwards.
A teenager's pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of a mother of 3 from Haywood who died after being hit in the neck with a broken bottle. A bomb disposal team's at a house in Hale where an unexploded mortar shell's been found. And despite the credit crunch, Debenhams has announced it's opening 8 new branches, including one in Bury. Manchester's weather dry with sunny spells. You can expect highs this afternoon of around about 11 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
Well, if you're travelling along Croxton Lane in Middlewich on the A530, watch out. There are delays at the moment because that stretch is closed between King Street and Chester Road with a diversion via King Street, Centurion Way, then onto the A54. And if you're travelling through the city centre of Manchester, Portland Street from Minshall Street to Chalton Street, 1 lane down, past the hotel there. That tends to cause queues along Newton Street heading into the city whilst water maintenance work continues. Don't forget, though, if you can update me, it's 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Mark Elliott.
The former Sheffield United manager Neil Warnock is considering suing West Ham after the legal dispute between the clubs over Carlos Tevez was apparently concluded yesterday with a £15 million settlement. Warnock said this morning that he could take his own legal action for personal losses and says he's still very unhappy with the Premier League, which he feels let Sheffield United down.
I felt that we worked so hard that year and the club was going to go forward and you do feel bitter, you know, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, I'm just bitter about the Scudamore in the Premier League, really, because I think that if it had been a bigger club than Sheffield United, there would have been action taken at the time rather than just trying to brush it under the carpet.
The new Oldham Athletic manager Joe Royal says the Ipswich goalkeeper Shane Supple is his first transfer target. He worked with the 21-year-old in his time at Portman Road and is hoping to bring him to Boundary Park in the next few days. Royal took over yesterday at the Latics for the rest of the season, but the club's managing director Simon Corney says it isn't guaranteed he'll make way for a new man in the summer.
Well, it could be. We're going to see how things go. It's Joe's first job in a couple of years, and also we didn't want the pressure to be rushed into it. Things change very quickly in football. It could be over the next 5 years. It could be at the end of the season. We don't know, but we both agreed it suited both parties that we would look at it again at the end of the season.
So for the moment, Royal is there on a temporary basis following the sacking of John Sheridan on Sunday. Sheridan says he wasn't given a reason why, but it's matters on the pitch that led to his dismissal.
The results over the last probably 10 games haven't been what we wanted, because obviously we were in a good position and I think we've let ourselves down with the results we've had. But again, saying that, I mean, we're still there. It's the first time this season we've come out of the top 6, so I feel as though we're doing something right. At the end of the day, it's about results, and I think the people in charge have felt the result haven't been good enough and they've made this decision.
The Wigan manager Steve Bruce says he thinks even competing for a place in Europe is a big achievement for the club. The Latics are 8th in the Premier League with an outside chance of a UEFA Cup spot, but Bruce knows that would be a huge step.
Well, Wigan, and we're never ever going to get carried away, wouldn't be within the rights of the club, but for me, what I've seen, I would have been quietly confident. Whether we can do it now remains to be seen, but it's a fantastic achievement anyway. If we can get anywhere near it, a club like Wigan, in the best league in the world, fighting in the top half, terrific.
England will face competition from 8 other candidates to host the 2018 Football World Cup. FIFA have confirmed England, Austria, Belgium and the Netherlands, Indonesia, Japan, Mexico, Russia, Spain and Portugal and the USA have all applied to stage the event in 9 years' time, as well as in 2022. South Korea and Qatar have also applied for the event in 13 years' time. On to cricket, and no internationals will be played at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in Antigua for at least 12 months. The International Cricket Council has made the ruling as a result of the abandoned second test between the West Indies and England last month. It looks like England's women's cricket team could face New Zealand in the final of the World Cup in Australia. England confirmed their place with a 146-run win over the West Indies. The Australian batsman Adam Voges has withdrawn from his country's one-day squad in South Africa to go home and get married. He's only played one-dayer for his country and asked to be excused one match as he had no idea he'd make the team when he proposed and set the date. But Cricket Australia refused, so Voges pulled out. His place has gone to Marcus North, who was also invited to the wedding. Well, there's speculation that the former England Rugby Union World Cup winner Ben Cohen could be coming to Sale Sharks. Sale say they haven't signed the winger. His current club, Breve, says there's no confirmation of any deal yet. The Oldham Ruffians coach Tony Benson is keen to avoid the tag of favourites after they won their opening game of the Rugby League Championship 1 season. They beat Blackpool 36-18, but Smith is refusing to get carried away.
I think it's the worst thing that could happen is that people start saying things like that. You know, we're only one game in and we've just struggled against Blackpool, who are a very good side. And you know, if you look, the scores coming through today or next week, really, we'll see that there's lots of good teams in our comp and everybody's recruited really well, and it's going to be a tough season.
In Speedway, Bellevue will be without Swedish rider Billy Forsberg for Sunday's challenge match in Glasgow. He's broken his wrist in a training crash and will be replaced by Denmark's Henning Bager, who's been signed as a short-term replacement. And in ice hockey, the Manchester Phoenix could be lifting their first cup tonight. It's the second leg of the Challenge Cup final away at the Belfast Giants, with the Phoenix leading 4-3 from the home leg.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
There's UEFA Cup football on Thursday night when City play Aalborg in Denmark. There's commentary in Manchester Sports straight after Rugby League Extra at 6.
I went to the ice hockey when they used to have it at the Manchester Evening News Arena. It was fantastic. It's like rugby with sticks.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Blimey. And he had a go at it as well. He does a bit of it, him in Bones. You know, the MI6 bloke in Bones. I think it was last week's where he played. Because they found a body in the ice. It's all a bit... If you don't watch Bones, you've not a clue what I'm on about. It's sort of CSI for academics with knobs on. Yeah, I'm probably not selling it as well as their trails do, but there you are. It's on one of them satellite things. You don't want to do with it. Dennis in Rochdale. Hiya, Dennis.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. What have you got?
Searching in cinemas.
Yeah.
I was at a cinema the other day, and you walk in, there's a big sign saying compulsory bag searches for recording devices, okay?
Yeah.
You walk in, you pay for your ticket, you go through to the screen, and there's a person stood there. They ask you to open your bag, and then they ask you to search your own bag for recording devices.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to put their hands in your bag, so you've got to search your own bag.
Yeah.
But my issue is with it. When you go in, when you go and sit down your film, there's a big advert, FACT, Federation Against Copyright Affair.
Yeah, yeah.
And they state that it's illegal for you to record the film and you'll be ejected from the cinema and face a fine, except. But there's nothing in there about taking recording devices in there. Because that's your mobile phone. If you've been out for the day, it could be a camera. It could be all kinds of things. But I can't find anywhere on any website saying that you can't take a device into a cinema with you. The actual offence is actually doing the recording.
Indeed it is. You're right in the point you make in that there is no law that prohibits you for taking a recording device in. However, cinemas are private places and they are entitled to decide on what terms they will grant you admission.
So, it's a bit strange though, isn't it? You know, I understand that they've got to stop people pirating DVDs and things. I'm like I don't watch anything. I'm not into that at all.
Yes.
But you know, if you're going out for the day, you've then got to check all your stuff in your car. Because we've been out for the day. I had a camera in there, I had my mobile phone in there.
Yeah.
And they say, well, that's okay. You can take that in. But you know, I've got to search through my own bag as well for it. So, what do you class as a recording device? Does it have to be like a big thing on your shoulder to record, or you know, there's no.
Well, these days it's not, is it? I mean, I've got a camcorder that, frankly, is not much bigger than a can of lager.
Yeah, I've got a similar sort of thing. Yeah. A very small camera you can take in. So it's basically because they can say pretty much dictate to you what you can take in, because there's nothing to do with food or anything. It's to do with just recording devices.
Yeah, but unfortunately, in the case of Sue in Stockport earlier, the problem there was that they looked and they found some humbugs or something. Well, no, it was revels, and they said, hang on a minute, you're not allowed to bring your own food in either.
Right.
And so, you know,
This is just recording, checking for recording device.
And you can understand, but I mean, as I say, it's daft, and the only way to avoid it is for us all to say, I refuse to be searched. And when they say, well, you're not coming in, they say, fine, I won't come in. Because if you don't go in, they're well knackered.
Yeah, well, I said to him, well, I'm going to search me with my wife's bag. To search me and said, no, you've got to do it. I said, what if I don't do it? And they kind of looked at me blank and said, well, I don't know. So, they're not really too sure what they're doing anyway.
Yeah, well, lack of training. I, for one, would tell them where to shove their search, and if they say, well, he can't come in, I say, fine, I'll have the money back.
My wife doesn't like me making a scene, but
Does
I
she
would
not?
just say, shove the bag where you know.
My wife doesn't like me making a scene, but she's slowly coming to terms with it.
Mine is, I'm trying to get mine around that way as well.
Hey, are you a man or a mouse?
Yes,
Put your foot down. I'll make a scene if I wish.
Well, thanks so much for your time.
And you, Dennis. What are we to do about it? Dennis is he's absolutely right. It's right and proper that they do everything they can to prevent copyright theft. I hate the trading standards getting involved. I can't see why it's anything to do with them. But I do object. I do agree with the cinemas and the other people in that industry that they should protect against copyright theft. But does it include, and should it include, being searched? I don't think I would tolerate it. I must admit, I've never been asked. I don't carry much of a handbag, to be honest, but my wife drags a small van around with her. A leather van it is. It's not a handbag at all. So there could be all sorts in there, including, God alone knows what, a sink fell out last week, but it could be anything in it. And I don't think I would tolerate it. I'd just say, no, you're not searching me. If they say you can't come in, no, that's the deal. I won't watch your picture. I won't leave you with the tenner or what the hell it's costing. You can, and if we all do that, they're stuffed. They'd close overnight. And it's not as if they're not struggling already.
We're losing time.
I love this. I like this.
Push hard now to get a gap.
Let's see if we can get him overtaken.
We've got company.
Very tight, we need everything you've got.
Push hard now to catch up with the front of the field. Come on, lose him.
Bravo. Formula One, the world's greatest car chase, starts on the 29th of March, live across the BBC.
It's like the Battle of Britain film, isn't it, where you can hear them all. Bandits, skipper! Bandits at 6 o'clock, skipper! What time did you say? All that going on. It's like that. As I said yesterday, if when you watch the Formula One, it wasn't just a load of overpaid lunatics, an overpaid skinny bloke sitting in a little rockety-shaped thing, hurtling round corners in a tedious manner. If it wasn't for that, if it was just that, I wouldn't watch it. But if they included that, they won't include that, Jordan. If they included that so we could all hear what they were all saying, oh, he's coming up behind me, oh, or whatever it was, I'd listen to that. I'd even watch it if you knew what they're on about. But you get some dour bloke saying yes, and they're probably telling him now that this will be an opportunity to overtake. Oh, there he goes, oh, for crying out loud, it's not that interesting.
Lunchtimes belong to Beswick.
Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
On the 7-year-old body that's been reburied, Alan, as you said, they dug up the body. The clue tells me the headless girl was already buried. Now she's been buried in consecrated ground. Does that mean that her soul can now be welcomed in heaven? And what about the holy people that buried her in unholy ground? Will they now get kicked out of heaven to make room? David, it's a fair question, but I think your concept of heaven is a little awry. Because, well, I think it expands according to requirements. I think it gets bigger and bigger. I don't think heaven is finite. I think it stretches according to the number of souls therein. I'm hoping that because, well, frankly, obviously, that's where I'm going, and it'll need a bit of room for that. Paul in Stockport said it cost me 12 quid now for 2 cups of cola and 2 bags of popcorn, actually bought at the box office or whatever, the jockey stall in the cinema. I regularly smuggle in cans of cola and bag popcorn, which cost me 2 quid from the local shop, a £10 saving. It's disgusting, the prices cinemas charge. I refuse to be blatantly ripped off. Paul in Stockport. I went out for a meal on Monday evening, last night. Oh, don't worry, somebody else was paying. But the prices are always on the menu, and I reckon that person was out of pocket about 60 quid. A lot of money. By God, it was a lot of money. And all I had, he had much the same, all I had was, what did I have? I don't remember. Oh, I had something with mushrooms, to start with. Mushrooms with sort of cheesy stuff on them. And then he had some, they were like noodles. They said they were pasta. Well, they're very similar. Very thin pasta with mushrooms. And then he had a blob of ice cream and 2 glasses of fizzy water. He had much the same, but instead of the ice cream, he had a spirit. And instead of the water, he had a glass of wine. That was it. I reckon that was about 60 quid. Fair enough. Not exorbitant in Manchester. By the way, there was only us in. There were about 3 tables occupied in the restaurant. That tells you what you need to know about the economy, doesn't it? Anyway, there we were. We had that. It was a business thing, and we had that, 60 quid. Well, on the subject of the cost, Paul, in Stockport, we could have got it a lot cheaper if we'd have brought in our own fizzy water and actually brought in some mushrooms and maybe some chips. We could have gone to the chippy round the corner, couldn't we? And brought that in. So it doesn't work like that, if you pardon me using a phrase that's now far too much a catchphrase of an advert, but you're buying an experience, aren't you? You're using their cooking facilities and all the rest of it. So it is cheaper to provide for yourself. But should it be that you provide for yourself at the cinema? At the football, I remember when they introduced no bringing in alcohol. At the cricket, all hell let loose. Can't bring in alcohol. We're not having you bringing in cans. You might throw them at the umpire or something. And, of course, what they were really doing, and they denied it at the time and they'll deny it again, what they were really doing was make sure you bought their beer rather than the beer that you can get a lot cheaper outside. So, I mean, it's everywhere. James in Hill Green says, I watched the television programme on Pakistan last night. It was so sad to see the 2 young girls sitting in the ruins of their school, blown to pieces by the Taliban. Then you see the young boys in the hardline Islamic schools where the only qualification they get is a PhD in jihad, martyrdom and death. Not a lot of peace and tolerance in that truly desperate part of the world. And it is unfortunately slowly coming our way, says James in Heald Green. Joe the Taxi, I don't think that Ireland was ever a part of the United Kingdom. The UK comprises England, Wales and Scotland only. Ireland was a part, you see, like picky. Ireland was a part of Britain, of Great Britain, but never part of the United Kingdom, says Joe, and I think he's probably right. Lorry on the M62, gantry sign says 10 miles, 9 minutes, which does away with the theory that the gantry signs are based on a 60 mile per hour speed. Then what is it based on? That's the problem, isn't it? If we say it's not based on 60 miles per hour, which for 10 miles it would be 10 minutes, for 10 miles 9 minutes is slightly above 60 miles per hour. We may be back to square one with that, which is not a comfortable thought, but maybe we are. I found a debit card this morning on the road, says Chris in Middleton. So when I returned home, I checked the telephone directory for the person's name and phone number, but couldn't find any matches. So I phoned the lost and stolen cards number on the back. When the operator answered, I said, I've found someone's debit card. He replied, yeah? To which I said, would you like the details? He replied, take it into a branch. I said, I'm not running around to a branch with it. He replied, then go away, and cut me off. I phoned head office to report this behaviour, and the first thing they said was take it into the branch. When I said I'll phone the BBC, I was transferred to another department who eventually took the details and stopped the cards. Isn't it heartwarming to know the banks take our card security so seriously? A fraudster could have ordered anything over the internet with this card, and I have in front of me a photograph of the card. A Visa debit card.
Join the Coffee Club for a caffeinated look at the morning's papers. Tomorrow morning from 9 with me, Heather Stott.
I bet the bloke that answered the phone to Chris will be on £1 million bonus. He clearly knows sod all about public service, and that seems to be how you get £1 million bonus.
95.1 FM,
DAB Digital Radio.
and the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, a teenager admits killing a mum of 3 with a broken bottle in Haywood, and a Stockport woman's drama over sweets at the cinema.
Warnock could sue West Ham.
It's a dry day, bright with patchy clouds around, and temperatures peaking at highs of 11 Celsius.
And traffic seems to be coping well on the M56 from Manchester through to Chester.
Good afternoon, I'm Mark Edwardson. A teenager's pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of a mother of 3 from Haywood who was hit in the neck by a broken bottle. 27-year-old Emma O'Kane died in hospital shortly afterwards, as Alexia O'Connor reports.
Emma O'Kane had been out celebrating her partner's birthday at the Queen Anne Hotel last December when she was struck by glass from a bottle thrown by 19-year-old Neil McNulty. He'd been refused entry to the pub. The bottle shattered on impact and a shard of glass flew into Emma's neck, severing her jugular vein. The mother of 3 was taken to hospital but later died. Neil McNulty was charged with her murder, but today he pleaded guilty to manslaughter. He's been told he faces an inevitable custodial sentence.
A man's been given an indeterminate prison sentence for terrorising an art dealer and his family during an armed raid at their home in Cheadle-Hulme. 23-year-old Casey Miller from Denton was convicted of armed robbery after holding a knife to the throat of Ivan Aird and threatening his wife and young daughter. He then stole L.S. Lowry paintings worth about £1.7 million from Mr. Aird's art collection. He's been told he must spend at least 5 years in jail. Police are still hunting 3 other men. The health service regulator in England has condemned what it calls appalling standards of emergency care at the Mid-Staffordshire NHS Foundation Trust. The investigation by the Healthcare Commission was prompted by consistently high death rates. The NHS's medical director in England said there'd been a gross and terrible breach of trust with patients. The Treasury Minister, Lord Miners, has revealed that the former Chief Executive of Royal Bank of Scotland, Sir Fred Goodwin, received a £3 million lump sum as part of his controversial pension deal. But when pressed by MPs on the Treasury Select Committee, Lord Miners insisted he didn't approve of Sir Fred's £700,000 a year pension. Universities want students to pay more for further education. A BBC survey suggests most want to charge at least £5,000 a year in tuition fees for their courses. The current maximum is £3,000. Robbie Gillett from the University of Manchester's Students' Union says poorer families won't be able to afford it.
We already graduate on average with £17,500 worth of debt, and whilst the number of applicants to university is going up, the applicants from lower income and ethnic minority backgrounds is stalling, so fees are putting people from deprived backgrounds off university, and the next generation deserve a free education regardless of your social background and class and ability to pay.
7 more people have been arrested by police investigating violence during last year's UEFA Cup final in Manchester. It brings the total detained in Scotland over the last 2 days to 17. A woman from Stockport says she was treated like a criminal when staff at a cinema found a packet of sweets in a bag and demanded she hand it over. The company, Cineworld, says its policy to search customers' bags is to protect its own food concessions and to prevent piracy. Sue, as she prefers to be known, says she refused to hand over the packet, which eventually led to staff threatening to call police.
The film was about to start. I said, look, I just want to go and watch the film. So I went in, sat down at my seat, and then the duty manager followed me in with 2 security guards. And then she said that, well, I'm going to have to call the police. Is that what you want me to do? Do you want me to go and call the police? And I said, yes, please do.
And police in Lee are hunting 2 armed robbers who bit off a bit more than they could chew. The men threatened the owner of the off-licence on St Helens Road with a knife and a claw hammer and pushed her into a fridge. Although they managed to steal a small amount of money, the robbers got more than they bargained for. When the 60-year-old woman fought back, hitting them with a bread tray.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Mark Elliott.
Sheffield United's dispute with West Ham over Carlos Tevez may have been settled, but their former manager Neil Warnock says he could sue for personal losses. He's confirmed he's seeking legal advice. The new Oldham Athletic manager Joe Royle says Ipswich goalkeeper Shane Supple's his first transfer target. He worked with him in his time at Portman Road and is hoping to bring him to Boundary Park in the next few days. England will face competition from 8 other candidates to host the 2018 Football World Cup. FIFA's confirmed that England, Austria, Belgium and the Netherlands, Indonesia, Japan, Mexico, Russia, Spain and Portugal and the USA have all applied to stage the event in 9 years' time, as well as in 2022. There's speculation that the former England Rugby Union World Cup winning winger Ben Cohen could be coming to Sale Sharks. Sale say they haven't signed him. His current club, Breve, says there's no confirmation yet. And in Speedway, Bellevue will be without Swedish rider Billy Forsberg for Sunday's challenge match in Glasgow. He's broken his wrist in a training crash.
BBC Radio Manchester satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, it's a dry day with a lot of patchy clouds around. And through the afternoon, there might be some cloud breaks, bringing you 1 or 2 sunny spells here or there. But once you add the cloud cover to the light winds blowing in from the east, it's a much cooler day than we had yesterday, with temperatures peaking at a high of 11 Celsius.
Allan Beswick, halfway through your workday.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Robert from Royton says, Beswick, going to heaven? Best joke I've heard, he says. That's terrible. It's full of people like me, heaven. Oh, yeah. Fine, upstanding citizens. Decent, kind, generous. Liars. David in Bolton says, it's stopping me going to the cinema. I think he means the cost of the sort of munchies. Yeah. So I don't think you call them munchies unless you're stoned, but you know what I mean. The cost of the munchies has stopped him going to the cinema. It's actually, the cinema itself, seeing the film, is not that expensive. You go on a Wednesday, when it's, what do they call it, Orange Wednesday or something, when it's 2 for the price of 1 and all that, it's fairly cheap by some standards. I mean, it costs you more to go to the theatre. Certainly costs you more to go out for a meal. And, yeah, you can get the DVD 6 months later, and it's, you know, watch it if you've got a big telly, then I suppose it's a bit like that. Yeah, but I don't think you have them big tellies unless you're on the dole, because every time they're on the dole they have a big telly. There's a wonderful story today. I really like it. And it's a family of fatties. Oh, yeah, they're huge. They're absolutely huge. Let me tell you, the only thing missing is the trunks and grey skin. They could be elephants. They are huge. The real Teletubbies. We want more handouts, say 83 stone family on £22,000 benefits a year, and who claim they're too fat to work. Ah. They have a combined weight of 83 stone. They claim $22,000 a year in taxpayer-funded benefits on the basis that they are too fat to work. Yet, incredibly, a family of 4 so obese, their neighbours call them the Teletubbies, are demanding more money because they still can't afford their calorie-laden lifestyle. Asked why they simply don't go on a diet, the jobless Chorner family said, "We don't have the time." What do you mean you don't have the time? They're not doing anything else other than chewing and occasionally picking the remote up, which would make them sweat. Anyway, both Philip, 53, and his 57-year-old wife, Audrey, weigh 24 stone. Their youngest daughter, Emma, who's destined to be, well, frankly, single for all her days, 5'3", weighs 17 stone. Her older sister, Samantha, 21, never been out, 5'9", weighs 18 stone. They haven't worked in 11 years, claiming their weight's due to an hereditary condition. Well, if you look at their fat parents, it looks like it is, because they are jumbos. These 2 girls are jumbos. If one of them fell in the swimming pool, everybody would shoot out like bullets, I'm telling you. So, I get so tired from watching TV, I need a nap. Hang on a minute. Cross out the N, replace it with an S and an L. I get so tired watching TV, I need a slap. Yep, that works for me.
Eamon and Diane. It's about fun.
What are you scared of? Balloons?
Scared of balloons?
I'm scared of balloons. They're very unpredictable, Eamon. They can bounce in your face.
Yeah, that's the unpredictability of it you don't like, isn't it? Me?
Yeah, very unpredictable.
Eamon and Diane. It's about Manchester.
One of our callers this morning said they heard a siren going off across Manchester. You haven't got any idea what that would be?
I'll make some inquiries.
Are you assisting us with our inquiries?
How about that? I'm assisting you with your inquiries. You know, this really is an advancement in technology, isn't it?
It's about Eamon and Diane.
Give it a try.
Eamon O'Neill, Diane Oxbury. Tomorrow morning from 6. BBC Radio Manchester.
Good day to you. William in Bolton says, re-alcohol pricing. This government doesn't give a damn about the health of the public vis-a-vis alcohol. It merely pretends to do so. However, it does give a damn about the vast profits made by its pals in big business. And despite the fact that a couple of years ago a senior police officer in Bolton described alcohol as the most dangerous drug on the market, my local authority continues to permit the prolific spread of off-licences on the High Street and in supermarkets everywhere. Sir Liam Donaldson's proposals is sheer hypocrisy. It says, in effect, that if you are poor, you should not get drunk. But if you are affluent, you have the right to get as drunk as you wish, whenever you wish. 0161 228 2255. How say you to that? Is it really just a way of controlling the poor, as he seems to suggest? From Malcolm in Astley, Alan, I think the motorway distance time signs relate to the current average speed of traffic to cover the set distance to the junction indicated. Well, yeah, I could go with that. I could understand that and think, well, yes, that's a very, very sensible way of doing it. But, last week, when we were really studying this, we seemed to garner that it was done at, 60 miles per hour, a mile a minute. Is it a mile a minute? That sounds scary, doesn't it? But it's only 4 times faster than Roger Bannister could run. So, heaven's like the national debt, then. Because I said it expands to accommodate those who wish to enter. So it's like the national debt. The Bank of England's debt just keeps expanding onwards and outwards. A bit like that family we were on about earlier. Dear God, what are we doing? I mean, if people are ill, then okay. But obesity is not hereditary. It's not. Eating too much is habit for most people. This is their typical meal. This is made up. We can't really say this is journalism. This is just made up. But their daily diet consists of breakfast, they have cereal. Lunch, bacon butties. But it doesn't tell you how many, you see. If you had 2 slices of bread and 1 slice of bacon with no ketchup and no butter or other slime, then that might be perfectly acceptable. But as, of course, if you have 7 of them ladled on with butter and a whole smoked pig therein, and indeed a bottle of sauce added to give it some flavour that you recognise, then it's an entirely different matter. Dinner, microwave pies, well, they can't be expected, can they, to stand at the stove when they get tired watching the telly. Come on, be reasonable. Anyway, judging by that woman, if she was doing a cooking, I don't think her arms would reach. She'd have to stand backwards on, because her belly's huge. Anyway, microwave pies with mashed potato or chips. You've got to be decisive in your life. They also eat biscuits throughout the day. In fact, rumour has it they share a tooth of just the one. Yeah. Oh, hang on. One of them's training to be an hairdresser. Emma. She's well, you can't tell whether she's the youngest or the oldest. Let's have a look. I'll have to go back to the beginning. 19. Yeah, she's the youngster. She's the child in the family. She's 5'3", weighs 17 stone. She's training to be a hairdresser. So that's good news. We like that. Yeah. I'll go there for my haircut. And she gets £58 every 2 weeks under a hardship fund for low-income students. Well, that's fine. I don't mind people being helped with their education. Absolutely right and proper. So she's all right. We like her. Well, I like, probably overstates. I'm a student and don't have time to exercise. Yes, you do. Walk to the university or the college or whatever. Of course you've got time to exercise. It doesn't take long to exercise. You walk somewhere. The students, we see loads of them in Oxford Road. Thousands and thousands are exercising as they wander back and to. Every one of them students isn't a blubber lad. Why? Because they're not. Because they're not greedy and stupid, I suppose. But there you are. But then they eat biscuits throughout the day. It all adds up to about 3,000 calories per day. Which means they must have been doing it for a long time. I've never heard the like of it. I'm too fat to work. Well, OK, but you weren't always too fat to work, were you? You must have become too fat to work after you stopped work, assuming, of course, that you ever started. Mum listens to you every day, says Lance. God bless. That's what she says, he says. She informed me you are struggling on a subject, so I thought I'd help. Here we go. Kangaroo Court. 1. An unfair, biased or hasty judicial proceeding that ends in harsh punishment. An unauthorised trial conducted by individuals who've taken the law into their own hands, such as those who put on by vigilantes or prison inmates. A proceeding and its leaders who are considered sham, corrupt, and without regard for the law. Right. Now we're going for the job here. We're going for the explanation. This is what he's offered us. The concept of kangaroo court dates to the early 19th century. Scholars trace its origin to the historical practice of itinerant judges on the US frontier. These roving judges were paid on the basis of how many trials they conducted, and in some instances their salary depended on the fines from the defendants they convicted. The term kangaroo court comes from the image of these judges hopping from place to place, guided less by concerns for justice than by the desire to wrap up as many trials as the day allowed. The term is still in common usage by defendants, writers and scholars critical of a court or a trial. The US Supreme Court has also used it. Oh, this is fantastic. Then he gives the case reference. And the case established that children in juvenile court have the right to due process. Under our Constitution, the condition of being a boy does not justify a kangaroo court. There you are. A legal reference to the term. Now we are impressed, are we not? Well, I am. But then, as you know, I am very, very easily impressed. In response to your comment, this comes from text. In response to your comment, Alan, that you shouldn't have to apologise for something that wasn't done on purpose. People are often inconvenienced by mistakes made by people who are negligent or incredibly ignorant. I can understand ignorance to a certain extent, says our emailer, in some young people. However, not from people in their 30s and 40s who ought to be obliged to get a grip and give themselves an education in propriety and stop treading on people's toes. And, oh, listen to this. You know, we had Chris telling us about the bank debit card that he found and attempted to get back to the bank, but they said, take it to the bank. And he said, no, I'd rather you just cancelled it, and I'll cut it up here and now. I found a debit card a few weeks ago. I handed it into my own bank and got a £10 reward, says one texter. Well, that's pretty good, isn't it? Colin in Bolton, with reference to the remains of the young girl from about 700 years ago. I think the official burial is justified for the historical interest in discovering something from such a long time ago. Indeed. And had it not occurred to anyone, this is Pat in Winsford, has it not occurred to anyone that motorway gantries already in situ on our motorways are unlikely to be exactly 10 miles from the town in question and are therefore rounded up or down, yet still calculated at an average speed? This would explain the anomalies quoted. Pat in Winsford. Well, the signs don't say 10 miles to Manchester or Warrington or Billericay or what have you. The signs say 10 miles to junction blah, and this is the time. So they give you the junction number rather than the town you may well be attempting to head toward. So that's slightly different, but not massively so. Anne says the Union flag is made up of St George's Cross, England, St Andrew's Cross, Scotland, and the Cross of St Patrick, which was added in January 1801 with the Act of Union, which merged the Kingdom of Ireland and the Kingdom of Great Britain to form the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. As far as I know, this continued until the Irish Free State left the United Kingdom on the 6th of December 1922. So how can people say that Ireland and England were never each part of the United Kingdom? Or have I been misled by my mentors? So says Anne, you make a very good point. 0161 228 2255 if there's something you want to say. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And the usual text number, of course, and that is 07786 206 951. How say you this day? 20 past 1 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines, Mark Edwardson.
A teenager pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of a mother of 3 from Haywood. Emma O'Kane died after being hit in the neck with a broken bottle. The health service regulator in England condemned what it calls appalling standards of emergency care at the Mid-Staffordshire NHS Foundation Trust. And despite the credit crunch, Debenhams has announced it's opening 8 new branches, including one in Bury. Manchester's weather, some sunny spells, highs of 11 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
Well, traffic on the main routes around the area not doing all that badly, really. Moving quite well on the East Lancs heading to the M60 around Junction 14. Not doing too badly as you go onto the M60 either. Quite quiet for the moment. And not doing too badly over the Pennines on the 62. Moving well from Junction 22, Rishworth Moor, through to 18 at Sinister Island. We still have these roadworks in Ancoats, though, on Pollard Street between Malta Street and Every Street, with sign diversions whilst water maintenance work takes place. Don't forget, though, if you can update me in the meantime, it's 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
Decongesting Manchester, one car at a time. 2020 traffic.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Lawn Green. Bonanza. Remember? Lawn Green. Years ago, when Bonanza was big on the telly, Lawn Green did a song called Ringo. It was just after the Beatles, so it was a good time to make this. And it went something like, he lay face down on the desert sand, clutching a 6-gun in his hand. Shot from behind, I thought he was dead, for under his heart lay an ounce of lead. But a spark still burned, so I used me knife, and late that night I saved the life of Ringo, Ringo. That was how he did it. He talked it. He didn't sing it. Well, he wasn't much of a singer, but he had a good talking voice. And I think we could do one about that family, couldn't we? Only we'd call it Jumbo. Jumbo.
Talking sense every lunchtime. Allan Beswick and you.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Peter in Northwich. Hiya, Peter.
Hello, Alan. Good afternoon.
And you, sir.
You know, this about losing weight. What?
Yeah.
I've been going swimming. I've been going to the leisure complex. Well, at least 5 times a week now for nearly 6 months, and I'm doing over half a mile a day swimming, and maybe 20 minutes gym before that. And I've not really lost any weight. I've just not put it on. But I mean, I must admit that I feel a lot more toned up and better for it. But I'm 61 though, and it's so hard to. I've felt it's so hard to lose weight.
Yes, it is.
But I mean, and I've been doing it for nearly 6 months now because I'm getting over prostate cancer as well. So it's helped me with that as well.
Yeah.
I think you go swimming every day as well.
I do indeed.
And it does tone you up and you feel a lot better for it, but you've got to make yourself have it, haven't you?
Well, you do. Some mornings, I mean, I do it I mean, that'll change soon, but I do it at 6:30 in the morning, and yes, that's that takes a bit of shoving some days, particularly in the winter. But yeah, you've got to do it, because what's the alternative? The alternative's not so clever. You end up like that family.
Well, I mean, if I hadn't been doing this, because I was getting a really big gut, and and then you have problems buying clothes and stuff like that, don't you? And you don't feel right, and you've got to make yourself have it. I just thought some of the listeners might be interested, you know.
Well, absolutely. But you say you've done all that and you've not lost weight because, of course, what we've found out over the years is that the amount of energy needed to burn off maybe half a stone of fat is a phenomenal amount of energy. A phenomenal amount.
Yeah, it must be,
because the human body is so incredibly efficient.
Yeah. I mean, in the past, I've taught that construction car, but I've been a bricklayer as well, and obviously when you're on the tools like that, you burn loads of energy.
Yeah, you're grafting 8 hours a day,
Exactly,
so replacing that with a 25-minute swim ain't going to do it.
No.
I mean, the problem is that the only way to lose weight, and, you know, there are companies that will charge you a fortune to tell it you differently, but the only way to lose weight is to eat less and work more, or either of those. But if you never did a lick of work, but you ate minuscule proportions, you'd still be skinny.
Yeah.
You know, now, the thing I can never understand about really big people like these, I really cannot understand. You know, you get to 12 stone and you think, oh dear, I'm getting a bit heavy here. And then you get to 13 and you think, oh dear, I'm getting a bit heavy here.
Yeah, I'd like to be 13 again. I'm 14 stone and I'm 5'8", so...
So you're like me. You need to shift a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But these people, how do you get to, 24 stone?
No, it's unbelievable. Isn't
Did the penny not drop, as it were, when you were 23 stone?
Yeah.
Very strange. Why don't they at 20 stone say, hang on a minute, I need to do something about this. Maybe I'll have biscuits without chocolate. You've got to make an effort. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. Crazy. Well, keep doing it. It'll drive you mad eventually, obviously. Like driving up and down, up and down. Is there anything more boring than swimming?
Well, it does get boring, but I must admit that, yeah.
With you all the way. Good on you, mate.
Okay,
So thank you very much, Peter. Struggling to lose weight, but at least feeling better. See, that's the other thing about exercise. It does make you feel better. Not while you're doing it, clearly, and frankly, not necessarily immediately thereafter, but in the end, you do. You just feel like, well, I can move about, I'm not finished. On St Patrick's Day, says Graham, I thought you'd like to see 2 signs I saw in pubs. Menu for today, 2 choices. Take it or leave it. and then try our delicious sandwiches. Huh? Nobody likes a coward. Oh, I see, yes. Try our delicious sandwiches. Nobody likes a coward. Very good, I like that. And finally, I took a picture of... And then he says, is Diane doing a bit of modelling for painting these days? But he sent me a picture of him. He's not sent me a picture of Diane at all. It's a picture of him. And frankly, it doesn't look anything like Diane. Because her beard's not grey, for a start. 0161. No, it's not. 228... 2255. If you want to join us with something that's stuck in your craw, then feel free. There's a story in the Manchester Evening News about the fire service in Wilmslow. If you live in Wilmslow, or indeed the surrounding area, you may well be interested in this. Because they're talking about part-time. Firefighters have warned lives will be at risk when full-time crews are replaced by part-timers in the shake-up. Cheshire Fire and Rescue Services is to use part-time retained, that's what they call them, retained firefighters for night cover at Wilmslow Station instead of the current full-time colleagues. The change has been approved by the Fire Authority and could be brought in by September. Up to 10 full-time posts will now be axed. The fire station covers Wilmslow, Alderley Edge, Prestbury and part of Manchester Airport. Retired firefighters are fully trained members of the public, but they're based at home. They must live within a 5-minute drive of the station and make their way there after getting an emergency call. Fire Brigade Union Regional Secretary said it will increase response times by up to 6 minutes. A fire can spread in a room in only 3 minutes. You live in Wilmslow. And it doesn't just apply to Wilmslow, because, of course, if there is a fire in Wilmslow, then fire cover may well be provided by adjacent stations. obviously, because that's the nature of the fire service. Now, you must make your own decision, but full-time firefighters are based at the station and the response is immediate. What do you think of it? Are you disturbed? Do you live in Wilmslow? Are you disturbed by the idea that your firefighter, whilst in Greater Manchester we've had this wonderful thought, well, they've bought all new chairs, haven't they? The firefighters used to go to bed. They used to have a kip in the station. If they were on duty and they weren't working at night, they would have a sleep. They'd be in their clobber, so that in the event of the bells going off, they'd be up like a shot, and they'd get to the fire in the shortest possible time. And then a big row went on about them getting paid to sleep, which I suppose in some respects, was, well, acceptable. You know, why should we pay them to sleep, was the thought of the local authority, so that's fine. So they said, OK, they're not going to pay them to sleep, but they can have comfy chairs. No, not the comfy chair. That's fine. So they got the comfy chairs. And no one was happy, and everybody was grumpy and all of that. Well, OK, but the retained firefighter, the part-time firefighter, he or she, usually he or she, is in bed. Not only in bed, but in bed up to 5 minutes drive away. Well, that 5 minutes, when you start thinking, well, OK, 5 minutes drive, let's say they're at the edge of that 5 minute drive. But, of course, they're not 5 minutes sat in the car. It's a 5 minute drive. They're in bed asleep. So they've got to get the call that wakes them up. All right? OK, so they get that. So then they get awake. I suspect if they're sleeping at home, they're not sleeping in their kit. I suspect they're in their gym jams or whatever. So then they've got to get the kit on. Then they get in the car, and then the 5 minutes starts. So we're now looking at 6 minutes. Then they've got to get to the station. You've got to park the car. You can't just leave it somewhere. So they've got to park it. OK, it's not going to be three-point turning and all that. They'll drive into the yard, get out and run. But you're now looking at another minute. So we've now got 7 minutes, and they're not on the appliance yet. Now, whilst that's going on, you're at the window shouting, "Help! Help! Help!" Do you think the fire service will be there quicker, slower, at the same time? Or don't you care, given that it's cheaper? David says, in my youth, I did a 3-month short, sharp shock in DC. DC? There was a fat lad in there who refused to do the 5:30 a.m. circuit training. He was forced to and subsequently lost 3 stone. Let's introduce compulsory fat camps. Nice thought. The front cover of my passport reads, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which proves that Ireland was never a part of the UK. Joe, no, it doesn't. It proves passably that it's not now, but it doesn't prove that it never was. Your passport only tells us what is now. By heck, Alan, I'm 5'11", 13.5 stone. I didn't think I was fat until you heard you say you should worry at 12. Well, it's a good starting point. Yeah. That hypothetical 20-year-old soldier who had his legs shot off in Iraq, add to insult to injury, he was told that he wasn't old enough to buy a pint of beer. Why not raise the age in which a soldier can go to war to 21, when we raise the drinking age to 21 as well? Well, I'll tell you why they don't raise the age of soldiers joining up, or civilians joining up to be soldiers, to 21, because they wouldn't join in the numbers that they do. Because one of the reasons, and I suspect many of the squaddies will vouchsafe this, but one of the reasons people join the forces is because they're at a loose end. Their life has no direction. There are those who spend their life thinking, I'll be 18 in another 3 days, I can join the army, yeah, or the Navy or the Air Force or what have you. Yes, of course there are. But the majority, I would suggest, and certainly when I was in, I was a volunteer when I was in, most of the people in there were at a loss. I was at a loss. I'd just got the sack from a job I wanted. Then I was doing a job that really I didn't want and didn't like and was bored by, so I sod this. And I joined up. And I suspect that's the case of many. But of course, that's at 18 years of age. When you get to 21, your life is beginning to be sorted. I'm not suggesting that it's sorted forever, but you're beginning to get some sense of who you are. You're beginning to get some sense of the direction your life is going in. So you're less likely to be at your wit's end and bored, so you're less likely to join. That's what I would say. So if they raise the recruiting age to 18, recruiting would be more difficult. 0161 228 2255. Andrew in Haywood says, come on, Alan, this is the BBC. That family are not fat. They are corpulently challenged. OK, I accept that. They are corpulently challenged. Mind you, they don't half look fat. Mr. Allen. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, Mr. I like Mr. Allen. He's a fair fellow. Who is Mr. Allen? 016. What is DC? I've not got that. That bloke said in his text, he said, I got a touch of the sharp shock in DC. Was that Washington, DC? DC. I don't know what that is. I'm not able to translate your text speak. I don't know what DC is. So you'll have to tell me. Yeah. Or leave me ill-informed and uninformed. Well, not for the first time, I hear you say. But we'll live, I don't care. I'll get by. I can live without knowledge. Yeah. I've managed this far. 0161 228 2255. People are still agitated about cheap booze. These politicians are pretty damn thick if they think they'll stop alcohol abuse by putting up prices. Look at the price of a packet of fags, 5 or 6 quid a go. Does that stop young people smoking? Of course not. Young people still smoke. You can buy a bottle of gin or vodka or whiskey for under £4 here in Seville. Yes, it's that, Chris. And yet there isn't any antisocial behaviour or hooliganism that is so prevalent in the UK. Obviously, it's not about price, but education and perception. Alcohol is almost demonised in the UK, whereas here, it's a part of life. It's quite acceptable to have a brandy after breakfast here in a cafe. I've seen it on many occasions, but the man ordering it isn't thought of as an alcoholic or as having a problem. He's not going to get drunk, he's just having a brandy. Full stop. When England played Spain here a few weeks ago, I was ashamed to see so many English fans falling all over the place, totally hammered, hours before the match even kicked off. Very sad, says Chris in Seville. And others have made that point frequently, haven't they? I'm not diminishing his point, but others have made it. It isn't about the cost of the drink. It isn't even about the access to drink. It's got something to do with the way people see drink. A lot of people in this country drink to get smashed. That's it. I'm going out to get blathered tonight. I'm having a skinful tonight, me. I'm having a skinful, yeah, me. Going out tonight. And somebody told us yesterday when we were discussing this at length, somebody came on and said £10 a night. He knows blokes who go out for 10 pints a night frequently. 10 pints. Crying out loud. 10 pints a night. Why? What do you get from 10 pints that you could not have got from 8 of the previous? So there you are, you're sitting there. You've drunk 8 pints. That means that you've now drunk between, I don't know what time, but you've now drunk in a couple of hours a gallon of liquid. A gallon of liquid. And you think, well, I'll just have a quarter as much again, because I'm not quite where I want to be. Well, where do you want to be if what you're offering, if what you're intending to do is consume 10 pints in an evening? Where do you want to be? What is 10 pints going to give you that 8 pints isn't, or 6 pints? Why not 2 pints and plenty of good conversation? Just a thought. Martin in Didsbury says DC is detention centre. Ah, yes. Poor man's Nick. DC is detention centre. Christopher says probably direct current. No, we're not electrocuting them yet, Chris, but thank you for that. And Malcolm says DC, ? Detention centre. It turns out that's what it is. Thank you for that. It is a problem. I'm not diminishing it in any way, shape or form, but it is a problem. The old DC, the old texting when you just get initials. I cannot possibly expect you to know every flaming initial under the sun. And some of them, as we just had well demonstrated, DC could mean direct current. What else could it mean? Dead crabby? Yeah, DC. Direct current. Yeah, we got that. Washington, D.C. That's District of Columbia, for them as want to know. No, I didn't either, but I had it. I thought I'd dish it out. So, D.C., District of Columbia. Not been there, working on it. And then we got D.C., which is direct current, and D.C. Detention Centre. What else is D.C.? Well, it's all that water on the coast. Look over there. There's D.C. Probably not. Just gone 20 to 2 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Michelle Adamson.
A teenager has pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of a mother of 3 from Haywood. Emma O'Kane died after being hit in the neck with a broken bottle. A man's been given an indeterminate prison sentence for terrorising an art dealer and his family during an armed raid at their home in Cheadle-Hulme. And despite the credit crunch, Debenhams has announced it's opening 8 new branches, including one in Bury. And Manchester's weather, some sunny spells with highs of 11 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
Let's take a quick look firstly to the motorways, and it all seems fairly quiet out and about on the main routes around Manchester. Let's take a look to some of the roadworks in the area then. If you're travelling around Alderley Edge, Wilmslow Road, the A34 between Brook Lane and the bypass roundabout, still have temporary traffic lights in force there, causing slight delays. And if you're travelling through Manchester city centre, Portland Street westbound from Minshall Street to Chalton Street, restricted by water maintenance work just outside the hotel. 1 lane down, and it's the left-hand lane that's shut to traffic. Don't forget, if you can update me, it's 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports.
Hi, good afternoon. The former Sheffield United manager Neil Warnock is considering suing West Ham after the legal dispute between the clubs over Carlos Tevez was apparently concluded with a £15 million settlement yesterday. Warnock says he could take his own legal action for personal losses and says he is still very unhappy with the Premier League, which he feels let Sheffield United down.
I felt that we worked so hard that year and the club was going to go forward, and you do feel bitter, you know, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, I'm just bitter about the Scudamore in the Premier League, really, because I think that if it had been a bigger club than Sheffield United, there would have been action taken at the time rather than just trying to brush it under the carpet.
Joe Royle took his first training session this morning as Oldham's new manager. Royle, who's in his second spell at Boundary Park as boss, says he's not going to change the backroom staff and has confirmed that assistant manager Tommy Wright and reserve team coach Lee Duxbury would be staying. He also says long-term assistant Willie Donachie won't be joining him.
There's no point in changing staff around here. You know, Willie is a fantastic coach and we've been a great team together, but I'm going to work with the team that's here. You know, certainly it would be rather heartless to start changing staff around when, you know, the lads here seem honest and they want to have a go.
Well, a former Manchester City manager has backed Joe Royle to do well in his second stint at Oldham. Brian Horton, who's now assistant boss at Hull City, thinks Royle's record speaks for itself.
I played against Joe when he was 15, so we go back a long, long way. He played for Lancashire boys, I played for Staffordshire boys. You know, he's 60, he's got a wonderful pedigree, but I feel for John Sheridan this morning, you know, because I've seen him play a couple of times this year and they play some good football. But that's management, I'm afraid.
England will face competition from 8 other candidates to host the 2018 Football World Cup. FIFA have confirmed England, Austria, Belgium and the Netherlands, Indonesia, Japan, Mexico, Russia, Spain and Portugal and the USA have all applied to stage the event in 9 years' time, as well as in 2022. South Korea and Qatar have also applied for the event in 13 years' time. Speculation is mounting that World Cup winner Ben Cohen could be on his way to Sale Sharks. According to reports in the French media, the winger, who's spent the last 18 months with Brive, is heading back to England for family reasons. Sale say they haven't signed him, but Brive say we don't have confirmation yet. No international cricket will be played at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in Antigua for at least 12 months. The ICC has made the ruling as a result of the abandoned second test between the West Indies and England last month. And after a win against the West Indies, England are through to the final of the Women's Cricket World Cup. Finally, in Speedway, Bellevue will be without Swedish rider Billy Forsberg for Sunday's challenge match in Glasgow. He's broken his wrist in a training crash. He'll be replaced by Denmark's Henning Berger, who's been signed as a short-term replacement.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Dennis Lloyd.
There's UEFA Cup football on Thursday night when City play Aalborg in Denmark. There's commentary in Manchester Sports straight after Rugby League Extra.
Yeah, that kept you going, didn't it? 2 name checks. What more do you want? I want extra money for that, you know. Or just let us beat you when we play.
Lunchtimes belong to Beswick. Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. How are you? Are you awfully well? Yeah, I am as well. It's good, isn't it? You know, this student thing we've been talking about a little bit. Because, well, frankly, only students and their parents seem to give a damn. But we have, haven't we? We've mentioned the fact that students, well, they may be required, if everybody gets their way, they may be required to pay more. Oh, Steve says, hi, Alan, DC means dodgy character. Thank you. You've never lived, Alan. 10 pints has, as Frank Gallagher says, let's have a party. I don't understand. David says, Alan, it only takes 1 pint to get smashed. The trouble is, I don't know which it was, the 12th or the 13th. That's Dan in Wigan. And Gary says, Alan, read the fattens. There's a family near me, him, her, 4 kids. They all look like Russian dolls when they're stood together. Him and her must be about 26 stone apiece. His parents are thin as rakes. Last year, they got a 08 plate people carrier on disability. Goes to the pub at lunchtime with the kids. Never seen so many bags of crisps eaten. Fat slobs, says Gary. Well, yeah. Yeah, you don't get fat. Nobody ever got fat from something like an illness. You only got fat because you're eating too much. You can dress it up any way you like, but nobody ever got fat who wasn't eating too much. And back with alcohol, do you fancy a night out without booze? Apparently 90% of lesbian and bisexual women like an alcoholic drink. Yeah. And it's with this in mind that the Lesbian and Gay Foundation and the NHS in Manchester have teamed up to bring Girls on Pop. No, pop. Stop it. Girls on Pop. A night of alcohol-free fun aimed at raising lesbian women's awareness of safer drinking. Girls on Pop is free. Even the booze, well, there's no booze. Even the drink's free. It's taking place at Vanilla Bar in the heart of Manchester's Gay Village on Monday, March the 23rd. That's next Monday. There'll be a free bar. You can have alcohol-free lager, alcohol-free spirits, alcohol-free wine, and alcohol-free shots. There'll also be some delicious food to nibble, in case you get the alcohol-free munchies. There'll be alcohol-free karaoke. Oh, yeah, you got to get in there. There'll be a free goodie bag, a whole host of treats. Never mind. Girls on Pop. There'll also be the new Girls on Pop resource, which takes a look at why women like to drink, the serious effects of alcohol on our health and behaviour, where to get support, alternative ways to be social without getting worse for wear, and much, much more. There'll even be a talk by Greater Manchester Police on safety. It's at the Vanilla Bar on March the 26th, 6 till 8. Then we'll adjourn to the pub. No, I added that last bit. No, I've got to be fair. I added the last bit. I tell you what. Lesbian and bisexual women festival in Manchester. I wouldn't mind the denim contract. You could retire on that.
Lunchtimes belong to Beswick.
Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. So there's the question. Should students be paying more for their own university education? Well, the BBC did a survey of the bosses of universities. They call them vice-chancellors. I don't know what the chancellor of the university does, but the vice-chancellor is the one that works. You know what I mean? So that's the grafter. And the other one is sort of ponces about a bit, making sure his hair's tidy and things like that. Anyway, the vice-chancellor is the one that grafts. It's the difference between the leader of the council and the chief executive. Well, it's not a good way of doing it. But the chief executive, so the chief executive of universities, the vice-chancellors, they say that, frankly, we need more money, and the only way we can think of getting it is off the students. Well, Gabrielle Hassan is already a student at Manchester University and says he's facing debts of around £18,000 when he leaves. This is him.
If you're leaving, if you've just done your A-levels and you're kind of moving into the kind of more real world, as people say, are you really going to be wanting to get £5,000 a year tuition fees alone, debt? I mean, it is going to put people off, especially from less privileged backgrounds. I mean, let's forget not as well. I mean, the people who are pushing this change, the vice-chancellors, the ministers at the Department for Innovation, Universities and Skills, they didn't have to pay for their education. So lots of people, like amongst my generation, are asking, why do we have to pay our education? What's changed so much? Why are people having to be put away from education to get a job straight away, as opposed to being given the opportunity to, further their educational experience?
He's got a good point, hasn't he, really? The people who made the decision to make students pay, and remember that was the Labour government got in, and I think I'm right in saying that their manifesto said they would not introduce student charges, and then they did. But it's a political manifesto. It's only ever a guide to what one of them's thinking in a dark room somewhere. But that's fine. So they introduced it, students having to pay. But it isn't just the students, is it? It isn't. The parents have to pay as well. So what can a parent expect to fork out for a child going off to university? Because this is when the decisions are being made. My wife's niece phoned yesterday to say that she's just submitted her final sort of piece of paper to get into the university of her choice. She's got to get the exam results and all that. But this is when the decision's being made. This is it. And if the fees went up, she and thousands of others would have to pay more from September. Now, OK, the government's wriggling like mad and saying, no, it's not going to happen. But what does it cost thus far? What does it cost now? If you've got a student at university, what would it cost you? 0161 228 2255. Carl Nagatis is from Winsford. He's already got 2 children who've gone through university. He's got another one. He's got his fingers crossed in the hope that they'll be going. But then again, of course, it must be a bit of him that's thinking, hang on a minute. So I spoke to him and he told me that graduates are facing financial difficulties even before they start work.
I'm of the generation when, if we were lucky enough to get to university, we'd get a grant as well. So the whole idea of, young people going into university education and starting off with a debt because they have to make, borrow money to survive through uni is just a nightmare. But and this news about anticipated increase in tuition fees, it's going to be such a blow to parents from all over the country, of all backgrounds.
The vice-chancellors want it. The government's sort of resisting it. You're the one that's done it twice, as it were. What sort of money are you having to put by now for the next one?
Well, I mean, we've actually, we had a savings arrangement that we put in place quite a while ago, thank God, to make sure that Heidi, who's 16 going on 17 and planning to go to university, will need that money for her tuition fees. But my oldest daughter, when she went through uni, she didn't have tuition fees, but she missed out on grants.
Yeah.
So,
and that was about £3,000 a year at the time, wasn't it?
Well, absolutely. exactly. And so she took some money from us. I mean, we made sure that she had a few bob, but she also went out to work and worked in the school, in the university bar, and did her bit.
But what do you say to those? What do you say to those parents who say, "Well, hang on a minute, my kids are not going to university. Why should I pay for yours to go when your kids are going to leave university and get a better paid job than my kids?"
Well, I think at the end of the day, as a nation, we're trying to, educate all our children as far as possible. And those that go to universities, they're not given any guarantees of jobs, but we're actually using their talents and helping them use their talents more efficiently for the benefit of the country as a whole.
And what about your middle child that left university recently? Has he or she got the debt sorted out yet?
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's now got a career and put her debts behind her. But it's all about parents stumping up money to put the kids through university. I mean, in a way, if I was being cynical about this, I'd ask the government, is this privatisation of part of the education system by the back door? When I was 17, 18 and looking forward to going to university, the state was going to help me a lot, so much so it's going to give me a grant to get through those 3 or 4 years. And now, as time goes on, there are more and more limitations. There's going to be a whole load of kids who can't achieve their dream of going to university, because of the costs involved, I fear.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Thank you. But that's it. Some people will never achieve it. Some people will be able to go whatever the hell because their parents have got a shed load of money and they'll just buy their way in. We've already got the situation where if you're a foreign student, I have to be careful here, but if you're a foreign student and you want to go to a university in England, I don't know the rules in Wales or in Scotland. Frankly, if you're prepared to pay the fees, they'll take you on. Well, why not? It's a business. Now, when did education become a business? And where is the point? Do you remember Ray Hunniford, all those years ago, talking about primary school education, where he was teaching in a town, I think it was near Bradford, but you remember him? And he said the problem in this school is that an awful lot of people, an awful lot of pupils are having to be taught English because it's not their first language, and some of them have no English at all, and it's holding back the indigenous people, the people who have English as their first language. Well, all hell let loose when he said that, but many people understood the essence of what he was saying. Well, imagine you're at university, which is challenging enough if the people you're supposed to be taking part in seminars with can't really speak the language very well. They are very well, that's me done. You can't speak the language very well. And they are there because, frankly, they had the 10 grand a year to pay for it. Why not? Well, because the people in that seminar are not going to get as much out of it as perhaps they otherwise would. I don't know.
BBC iPlayer is great. Evidently, my persuasive skills aren't. Unlike the advertising guys in Mad Men, I couldn't convince my wife that I have to watch it instead of going for dinner with Sue and Bob, who we don't even like. Thankfully, I can watch it when I come home on BBC iPlayer. Still have to go out with Sue and Bob, though.
Don't miss the drama. Catch up on TV and radio programmes on your computer with BBC iPlayer. Making the unmissable unmissable. Go to bbc.co.uk/iPlayer.
That was a bit funny, that Mad Men. Have you seen it? No, I'll rephrase that. It wasn't at all funny. Well, we got it, the DVDs of Mad Men. Well, I don't think we ever watch live telly now. We watch the news live, and then after that it's DVDs or whatever. Or if we can be bothered and remember, recording it on that Sky Plus thing, which frankly it's just made the remote control much more complicated. Certainly beyond me. We keep a 5-year-old boy in a cupboard and just let him out to work the remote controller. Anyway, he seems all right. He's perfectly reasonable. He's got a living. He's not up a chimney. What more does he want? Anyway, where was I? Yeah, Mad Men. I thought it were a comedy. Cost me a fortune. I bought all these flaming DVDs in a box. You know, one of them strange, thin boxes that look like a cheap book. Open it, they're all stuck in. Push that thing in the middle, can't get it, put it in. Thought, this'll be a laugh. There's not a laugh in it. There's not a flaming smile in it. There's not even a grimace. It's a drama, for God's sake. I'm not paying good money for bloody drama. I want to laugh for my money. Anyway, there you are. I got that Boston Legal, laugh like a drain. Bit of drama, isn't it? But it's funny. Yeah, all of that. Even The Sopranos had a smile or two. Mad Men, it's very good, let me tell you. It's very, very good. Not a titter. Not a cracked face in the place. Dear God. You do get to see some very old American cars, which would please Mark Edwardson, but does sod all for me, let me tell you. They're just cars, aren't they? I mean, God forsaken, they're just bits of metal bashed into a funny shape, and then stuff poured in the back that's killing us all, and they move forward with them. Madmen, indeed. You ought to be a madman to buy it. Anyway, it's not made any better when I know that I could have watched it for free when it was on the telly. I missed out. But there you are. But it's not funny, that's the point I'm making. I like my DVDs to make me smile. I don't like them to just sit there and say, Yahoo sucks, which is very American. I'm back tomorrow. Ta-ra now!
Take one portion of bickering,
a couple of mild disagreements.